Welcome to the Almost Daily ZenCast show. Hosted by yours truly, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Hello and namaste. Let's get things started. My chair is very squeaky, and that's okay. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I don't know if the microphone picks that up every time, or if it's something that you guys are like, what is he talking about? At any rate, forgive me, sometimes I can't help myself. That kind of stuff is really funny to me, even if it's not funny to other people. I don't know which is worse, whether that, like, if that noise is really loud and annoying, I guess that'd be better, because at least that way you'd know that I'm not insane. Because there's a really loud and annoying noise over here. I don't know if it's coming out. I hope it's not, like, blaring out of your little ear pods. Welcome to another episode of the Almost Daily ZenCast. Kind of ad hoc, unscripted, from the heart, truly heartfelt, genuine rant and chit-chat show hosted by me, and hopefully eventually, not too distant future, co-hosted by others, with guest appearances by yet others still. Kind of putting that out there as a persistent invitation for all the SoCal locals that are intrigued by my ramblings and would like to help me make this more of a talk show and less of a guy talking to himself in his living room show. I digress. Although no one's written in to ask this question, I know that if I was listening as a sort of, if I was just Joe Schmo out in the street and I'd stumbled across this and was listening right now to this for the very first time, and this was the very first track I'd ever listened to, or even more so, I think, if I'd kind of binged, listened, and or binged watched also, because there's a chunk, of stuff that was on video during season 0, as I like to call it. At this point, I'd really, really want to know, because I don't think I have explained it. And if I'm having a total, senior citizen, absent-minded, forgive no ageism here. Forgive me. No, there is no ageism here intended on my part. But that is a saying, right? Like senior citizen moment. And I've already explained that, or rambled up along this sort of same avenue. Forgive me. I'm probably bound to do that more often than not, given that I'm trying to do this on the almost daily basis, and the only preparation I make is the notes that I take throughout the day, kind of at random every day, and then I kind of but why do I call it a ZenCast? There's an actually really weird specific answer to that borders on either the kind of material that might be dismissed or is dismissible as hippie, new age, woo, and nut job crazy talk. But it's because I also think it's trendy sounding, to be honest, and I want it to catch on. And I want people to be like, yeah, that ZenCast show, project thing, whatever you call this, podcast, right? So who knows? I would love your opinion. Let me know if it's working, if it's not working. Some of you, the most astute ones, will have noticed that I'm tinkering with the visual design of the whole project. Little by little, I'm upgrading the cover images for each segment series. Let me know which of the two, because I left the old ones alone, right? Like the previous episodes all have the original covers. And the new ones will feature this new cover for a while. Let me know if it matters. If you're the kind of person who does not give two flying fucks in high wind. Oh, I totally butchered my own saying. That's two flying farts in high wind, or three farts, however many farts you would or would not give about this issue. Then don't worry about it. Just ignore it. But if you're the kind of person who likes collaborating, but doesn't like to, just tell me which one is better. Which one reads easier, which one is more appealing, or if neither of the two options currently being used are worth continuing to use and that I should redo it somehow. I welcome the feedback. So, I caught something in the news that I thought was really interesting because, in a way, I guess I'd been waiting for this kind of moment to occur. Or rather, more correctly, if I was going to explain myself with as much clarity and accuracy to my own sort of complex set of thinking here around this funny little phenomena, I had been curious with anticipation as to whether or not the following sort of moment would organically arise in any of our news media. And I'm intrigued and I guess in a way relieved to hear that, yes, the following question, which I'd had in my mind for quite some time, has been asked out loud, totally in a rhetorical, not that it is itself rhetoric, but I'm sure that they didn't expect people to write in suggestions. Given that the whole purpose of this show is to sort of bring the transcendental point of view, or a Zen, and again, as always with every episode where I reference this notion, welcoming suggestions for a new, and not the term New Age, because that's out, that's old, that's fucking, New Age is so, there's a lot of hilariousness around the term New Age, because, I mean, what we're really talking about, what people like myself are really talking about, at least in my case, I presume in others, if they're legit, especially if they're not peddling some bullshit product that is just about getting you to buy some system for lots and lots of money, which you might notice I do not do. Would I love to be on media and make a living doing this? Yes, but do I have some bullshit scam that I'm trying to linchpin that around? No. So I guess I'm going the old-fashioned route and hoping to be discovered. By whom? I don't know. I guess the audience, the correct audience, that would sort of force me to be in some media market space. But for some time now, because I am an observer and a critiquer and a general sort of nuanced commentator of my own, sort of weekend armchair commentator of media at large, I was curious if anywhere, where and when in the media some very specifically worded question would come up. Who might, and whether or not I'd ever come across it, if I would get to witness it. I find that some of the best moments in live news media are the ones that and I don't mean I in the self-egocentrist sort of way, are the ones that are the best for anybody in particular, are the ones that are most memorable, are the ones that when we as individuals or as a collective get to witness the particular curiosity live, without any setup, without any being tipped off, without any foreknowledge, and without any incentive for watching that particular channel or not. Or another, right? Otherwise, it could be easily dismissed as like, well, it was just bound to happen. But for those who don't know, I habitually, like on the daily, except for the days that I choose not to engage with cable news media, like to flip through at least a quick dip, just like a flavor taste of like, oh, that was a little soundbite from Fox News, that was a little soundbite from C-SPAN, that was a little soundbite from CNN, that was a little soundbite from PBS, that was a little soundbite from... through as many of them as available to me on my current default cable provider. No corporate endorsement or criticism meant in this particular segment here at this moment in time, you know. But so, given that this one was a particularly specific and personal one, and that I wish I had talked about it sooner, so that I could have on tape, on record, as it were. The fact of the matter that this has been on my mind for some time. But I guess tragically, I don't know, maybe it is and I just don't remember right this second. But I don't think that it is. If it is, and a listener has caught it and is currently going, aha, I know it is, let me know that you've heard me say something like this. But I've been eagerly anticipating, and I kind of expected it to happen further on down the road when things got a little bit worse. When things got a little bit more out of control, as it were. When real life started to look way too much like the backstory prequel to The Purge or something insane like that. I figured real life people, real life journalists, regardless of whatever conspiratorial or legitimate corruption may or may not be going on in any particular news media organization or not, somebody somewhere, or a group of people, a chorus perhaps even, of media persons would eventually be forced to ask a question along the lines of, what is the cure for all of this insanity? And you'll forgive me, guys, if I'm incorrect that in the following statement that someone, you know, for example, someone else has said it on some other channel. God bless it. Wouldn't it be hilarious if someone said this on Fox News 6 months ago? But from just me, and I'm not claiming to have my eyeballs on every minute of every channel, because I sure as hell don't. I don't care that much, folks. It's my hobby. This is my hobby. During a certain period of the day, especially on days during times like these when I'm free to do with my time whatever I wish, because I'm next to zero responsibilities besides to live and breathe, when I'm on my creative hiatuses, whatever the project is, I tend to spend all day in some fashion or other focused on it. And currently this is it, right? And I'm watching a lot of news on that, for that matter. So, Rachel Maddow, I do believe it was yesterday or the day before. It must have been Friday. It had to have been Friday, because I saw it on a repeat yesterday, which is Saturday, and today is Sunday, correct? Okay, so that makes the most logical sense. But she's rounding out some story about the clusterfuckery in our nation's capital. Threw up her hands and said, what is the cure for all this? And I wrote down for myself as I watched it, meaning Trump's craziness, which seems to be spreading. Ooh. Right? And that brings me to what, how on earth does politics and Zen, how do they intersect? I mean, I've tried to bring it, I think it's pretty obvious. Anybody who's been listening the whole time, all the way through, is like, oh God, really? Is he going to go down this same rabbit hole again? I guess. I don't know. I'm really I'll be honest with you. Full disclosure, I'm getting a little burnt out of doing this project by myself. There. Just keeping it 100%, folks. This is an almost daily kind of podcast thing that's about me talking about what's going on in the world. And it'd be so much more fascinating if there were people to talk about it with. And there aren't. In large part because I guess I'm really only asking the audience, which may be sort of my own failure there. Did I just have a moment of realization? I should be asking other places. No, I ask in Facebook, but that's also sort of where I snag audience. I'm totally segueing very poorly to my next big thought, which is, what is the cure for all this? Honestly, what is the cure for all this? What have I rambled about before on this crazy podcast? All of the problems that we face, and I know that this sounds crazy, and I know that I've said it just like this before. I'm having some kind of weird deja vu where I'm like, what am I doing? I guess I'm trying to be my own echo chamber, right? If anybody's listening along and going, what is he talking about? Forgive me. It's Sunday. I'm feeling a little cabin feverish and a little bit wound up because to this person over here who's been sitting around thinking about all these big issues, like, where do the bad guys ultimately, where do those guns come from? And big issues like, why do all the religions seem to be about peace and love and forgiveness, and yet out there in the news, in the real world, they're all killing each other? Or at least fringe elements of seem to be engaged in some form. It's always back and forth. Kind of like in that one book where that guy warned us about perpetual warfare and how they're going to use religion and politics to keep us in it. Perpetual warfare, You know. What is the linchpin? I tell you. I've been trying to keep things groovy since 1976. And by that I mean, I was born kind of half woke up, ready to be like, the fuck is wrong with you people? Dropping out of my mommy's hoo-hoo. Because, here's the truth. That all cultural wisdoms that reach deep down into from whatever culture you want. Here's a true. Capital T, true, hyphen, so that it's still cutesy, capital T, true. When a child is born, they know everything that they're going to forget just then in order to become a normal person in the world. So that's all. When anybody talks about waking up, you have to parse it out and go, are they peddling something? And if they're profiteering on something that they're peddling, then they probably ain't as woke as they claim. What are we really talking about? And that's, in my language, in my words, let me lay it down for you. Waking up is a process. A process a bit like, growing old. A process that can't be rushed, but that can also be, while it can't be rushed, it can either be practiced and improved upon, engaged in, you can participate in it, or you can neglect it, ignore it, not do it. Those are your two big options when it comes to waking up. And those two phenomena have nothing to do with what's coming out of your mouth. How do I know? Because I have been someone in the past that talked a lot about meditate, like I am now. Irony, confusion. But it talked a lot about meditation and enlightenment and truth versus illusion and the many tiers of meaning that statement has in our world, etc., etc. But I've done it, and I've also not talked about it, like in great depth, if that's a thing, if that's possible to be said, if I can coin that phrase. I've quite literally, with quite a lot of depth and intensity, not talked about it. And every gradient you can imagine in between those two extremes, right? And I've come around full circle more than once. I'll be honest with you. And that's important. That's key in terms of the way I look at this project. Right? Like, I'm not here to tell anyone what to think or what to believe in. I am here to point out stuff that I think are, make statements that I think are the truth. You can say that I believe in them, although I sort of loathe to use that term. Things that I have engaged in practicing, and things that I have failed to engage in practicing, and every kind of variation in between. And ultimately have, for myself, come full circle on a couple of times. And I think I've learned a lesson or two. So I can say, go ahead, test it for yourself, but here's what I think is going on there. And that's the question. The question being, what is the cure for all this? Well, first, before you really go chasing after any potential cure, and this may arguably be the reason why no one is stepping up with a solution either. And solution to what, you might ask? All the problems that we face. The gun problem, the terrorism problem, the fear problem, the xenophobia problem, the racism problem, the healthcare problem, the corruption in politics problem, all of them the war problem, the profiteering on insert everything here problem, big pharma problem, it's ego. Yes, it's that simple. It is a species-wide illness of the soul with which we have been contending for many generations, for many thousands of years, arguably longer than that, if you take anybody's ancient numbers seriously, which may or may not be necessary. Suffice it to say that for longer than we can calculate accurately at this point, do you and me, humanity has been wrestling with an issue, a central issue, and has let it be expressed 1,000 different ways. And we have let ourselves slack and slide and get by, but totally fail to succeed at passing the test. To the point that I theorize, that by the time Jesus came around, mind you, Buddha happened before Jesus. I think a lot of people don't realize that. I know that I've met people who literally think Jesus happened before everything else in history, and that's, no, there's a lot of history that happened before Jesus. Buddha having his moment of enlightenment and his whole life go by, and his whole teachings and all that, and years of meditation, happened anywhere between 500 to almost 1,000 years before Christ. And there's, of course, I know that there's out there a whole whiplash movement of Jesus didn't exist. I postulate that there's some split middle ground. That a guy in Judea had a kind of like aha moment of waking up and doing yoga and studying the text and not just his own, but probably others that we don't have any direct reference to, because all of that's been edited out and purged by the various councils of the tradition of editing Christ's New Testament and corrupting it. And that it's not impossible if you think about if you let go of preconceived notions and ideological constructs, as I'm always encouraging you to do, and consider that perhaps, just maybe, the phenomena of what we call Jesus Christ and Buddha might be something that's happened more often than once. Not terribly radical, something I've talked about before. I think that it's important to talk about and engage in out there in the public discourse more often, because if you think about it, it kind of makes a lot of sense. That we would be, as a species, manifesting a wakefulness, consciousness reminder person, avatar, that is, positioned to go, hey, everyone's always asking what the cure is to this madness. Here's the cure. Just practice some kind of meditation and strive towards the thing known as enlightenment in order to transcend this plane as you know it now, to move on to another place where things will be radically different, arguably radically better. Better being a relative term, and a term that only has value here. It won't have value there. There's a lot of words and ideas that are going to be lost. And I don't think in a way that it'll be like, oh, we miss them. No, it's not like we're being oppressed. We're not allowed to play with our Xboxes. It's like they'll literally be no longer necessary because of how advanced our perception of reality will be. Ego has been defined a bunch of different ways by different academics and, doctors of psychology, etc., etc. And we have a sort of generic postmodern comprehension of ego as an integral aspect of yourself that manages your anger and sort of helps put your defenses and your self-interest out there first. Those with really open mind and open eyes, I'm constantly reminded this afternoon as I get ready and as I'm speaking this podcast of the phrase real eyes, realize, real lies. That used to be a pre-internet meme. Like, I used to see that either documented in photographs as graffiti in other cities or as actual graffiti. I've seen it as graffiti myself. In the days, you're long before the internet. But realize what real lies are. And what does that mean, realize? It's a fun play on three ways of saying the same vowels and consonants in different words, the same sounds with different meaning. The ego is part of a larger mechanism of the human experience, the human phenomena, which occurs beyond the body, right? But it's a confluence of the body, the emergent phenomena that the body generates, which make a spiritual, psychokinetic, energetic connection to transdimensional architecture, which is also part of the phenomena, whether we're cognizant of it or not. And the ego filters things down to the most fleshy, the most material plane-ish, the most ego, because this is ego land. This is kindergarten of ego land. And we got to pass a series of tests and graduate out of Eagleland High School to move out of state, to go to college at Ascension University. It's a horribly constructed analogy, but there you go. And as I like to post sometimes, with what I hope is an original meme, although I stole the images off the internet because I can't draw for shit, but they are precisely the images that I saw these images in my mind when I conceived of the memes before I went searching for these images and had seen them. But my meme that reads meditation or meditate, I think I have a couple variations on it, but then in brackets or parentheses, it cures that shit. It's meant as a sort of catch-all response to when people post what clearly looks like ego-driven gripes and complaints and woes is me's and oh my goodness, what do I do about this kinds of posts on social media. And I'll often sort of retire it and kind of give up using it so as to not be labeled a meditation troll. Although I've been called that. Like, you're a meditation troll, man. You just walk into everybody's fucking things and post about it. Meditation is as if it's gonna fix whatever the fuck they're arguing about. My response, quite unknowingly, has to be, but it would, man. It does. Couples that meditate together stay together and orgasm harder together. I just know that to be true. I don't know that scientifically yet, but I know it deep down in my soul to be true. To be correct, to be what the universe encourages us to be doing, as opposed to everything else. And I say, why not reorient our society around in that direction? Because what the media, what anybody's asking, and I'm sure that in the history of the world and of all media everywhere. At all times, the dear and quite wonderful and very thoughtful and thought-provoking and well-spoken and clearly intelligent Rachel Maddow, who I don't mean to coddle up to other than I would love for her to entertain this sort of extreme alt-center that I'm trying to carve out as a political counter ideology or anti, or as I don't even call it anti-ideology, other than if we can understand that I mean in the sense of antimatter. Antimatter is the opposite of matter, therefore it is not matter. You know what I mean? So my ideology is anti-ideology. Not that it is against. It's not, but it is. It is inherently against ideology, and it's not just mine. This predates what we're describing with those of us who ramble on this way and write books about this kind of shit, or just do whatever crazy obsessive compulsive thing up this alley of what I'm presenting to you folks in this project is that we're not just against ideology. There's a sort of compulsion to remind everyone that ideology in and of itself is not required in nature or by nature in any way, shape, or form. And that, in fact, nature as it exists, nature, the cosmos, mother, the womb, that which is all that is, has a higher order of operations than that which we fixate around or about in our media. And while most of the world's going blah, 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 sports ball in news and politics are important, with their fingers in their ears and you know, the blinding hands of cultural conditioning over their eyes, Mother Nature is like, hey guys, get your shit together, because there's this whole other bandwagon you got to get on board with to facilitate your own progress and collectively that of all life in the entirety of existence towards some higher order thing. This event that supersedes, and in every way measurable, any way that you could measure it, is fundamentally, you know, profoundly much more important than any political operative's opinion about any other political operative's opinion about what's going on in political terms in the world, because all that shit is crazy. And that's why folks ask, like, they get fed up and like, well, this is insane. You know, not the first time. I'm sure that folks who lived under any of the crazy, slow transition from democratically elected, sociopath to outright tyrannical, oppressive legacy regime, which is something that human beings seem to want to do on a generational basis. Right? It seems like it's part of human nature. Or is it? Arguing about human nature is sort of moot, in my humble opinion, because the universe knows, and our ego mind, our sentence logic construction, paragraph writing, journalist brain does not know and cannot answer that question. And the cosmos knows, that the purpose of life and of existing relates to things intrinsic and organic to the cosmos, and not in any way, shape, or form attached to a political construct invented by someone who's living really blindered away from having a deep connection with the cosmos itself. That's why if you look at my Instagram, if you're a fan and you haven't been to my Instagram lately, go check it out. It's mildly different than my Facebook, because on Facebook I also reshare Facebook stuff, and there's no convenient way to, if I'm on my computer, on my laptop, there's no awesome and convenient way to share something from Facebook onto Instagram. And then my concession to all that is to, share interesting things I find on Facebook by screenshotting them and then Instagramming them and then resharing that Instagram onto Facebook. Because everything's a recursive fractal, right? Something that I was going to comment on. Oh yeah, on Instagram, if you go look, I haven't been there in a while, I kind of laid out these 3 things with a really simple one sentence thing. I usually have a bit more. I usually ramble on a bit on Instagram if I'm in the mood to post something there. But a really simple statement as part of like a triptych, which is meant to be just visually soothing and conducive to some kind of contemplative or meditative thinking or state of mind, for lack of a better term, because there ought to be a better term than that state of mind. And the reason, and people wonder, like, why? How are you sure? How do you know that political ideology will not? Because political ideology is almost always, even when it's dressed up as with spiritual terminology or in spiritual terms, anything that becomes ideology, especially if you look through history over time and look at the patterns, that long-term trajectories of political, ideological, spiritual, ideological constructs in various cultures, corruption seeps in, and ultimately the notion that there is an authority which must exude control over the public and garnish some form of profiting, either the profit of power, if not directly profiting in real or symbolic currency. Oh, I totally missed the 420 moment, as there's less than 4 minutes and 20 seconds left in today's Almost Daily ZenCast. Like, that's what they're out to do, right? Like, that's throughout history. Let's say, arguably... Oh, and it's almost literally 420 now. I might roll right into a cannabis talk, folks, because it is that kind of day. I'm not going anywhere. And it is a divine gift from whatever you understand to be God. Because as many of the more open-minded sort of movements in the world recognize, ideology is sort of the downfall. If you're trying to peddle ideology, you are caught up in the wrong direction, right? So the healing things are those that are practices that engage the individual as well as the community, and that bring us to a place of spiritual healing through a deep and profound clarity of perception of the truth. And the truth is ultimately the real truth, the organic truth, the cosmic truth, the truth that is being brought forth by that which we call the universe, which inherently contains and is itself contained by, or being incubated by, or being imagined by the divine. So it's like this relationship of chicken and egg and chicken and egg and chicken and egg. God is the universe, and the universe is God. And you, just like setting God aside, you are meditate on this week, my friends. For those of you who are already on board and are wondering, why the hell am I still rambling? This was the gift I was supposed to lead you down a little silly mind path towards thinking. You are the universe. The universe is you. Meditate on that. Try to debunk it. So set aside God. For those of you who have trouble meditating about God, meditate about that which is organically reality, the real and true universe. And meditate on the question of, am I the universe or am I not the universe? Can the universe exist without me? Yes. That might lead you to falsely believe that you are not the universe. But can you exist without the universe? No. You are intrinsically inseparable from the universe. Thus, I always say to you, you are the universe, and the universe is you. Meditate on that, my friends, between now and the next time that I visit you. And hopefully may peace, love, and grooviness be with you. Hey everybody, it's 4:19. You got a minute? Because after the tiniest of breaks, I'm going to be right back on the airwaves for cannabis talk. Happy 420, everybody! Oh my gosh. It's a historic moment. There's a person in the chat room on Sprecher. Forgive me, I have to go. We'll be back in like